Hello and welcome to the Chin Music GPP podcast. Of course, by now you know that I'm Big Italy 42 and he is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. And of course, like the name indicates, we're talking about GPP action tonight on FanDuel and DraftKings. We're going to break down every position, give you our takes, some guys that you were looking at but you should consider looking at, some guys you might not have been looking at, and then some guys that you're going to think we're crazy for talking about that we're going to be playing in some tournaments. So it's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a lot of good spots for some people tonight. So I'm really excited for tonight's slate.
Yeah, and it's odd going through the rundown before the podcast. A few positions that aren't typically deep with options. We like some shortstops tonight. We like some depth at catcher tonight. Like, these are not positions you usually find multiple players to like at. But we have, and I'm pretty excited about not hating my shortstop tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely some options here. So we'll just go by position, then we'll kind of, talk FanDuel, DraftKings, salary, whether we like them more, whatever. So obviously at pitcher, you're probably the most popular option, I should say. Maybe not necessarily the best option. I mean, it's kind of up for debate right now because he's a marginal favorite. But you got Matt Harvey, $10,300 on FanDuel, $10,400 on DraftKings. It's going to be a pretty popular play tonight against the Cubs who strike out a ton. So I'm not saying don't play him in your GPPs. I'm sure you're not saying it either. I'm just saying he will be popular. So, especially on a one-pitcher site, you're going to want to differentiate somewhere. That's the whole point of your GPPs. So unless you think Matt Harvey is a lock for 20 points, you might want to differentiate somewhere. So say you have to give me your favorite GPP option. Obviously, we'll talk the other ones too. Give me your favorite GPP option that's not Matt Harvey on FanDuel tonight.
I'm going to go with the guy who got the better of him in their last turn, and that's Cole Hamels of the Philadelphia Phillies. Pittsburgh Pirates have struck out quite a bit against left-handed pitchers this year and have struggled in general against them. It's not as if they're striking out but doing wonderful things hitting for power. No, they've just been dreadful against left-handed pitchers this year. So Cole Hamels is actually an underdog tonight, which is also going to keep him under-owned. But Cole Hamels, big strikeout upside, and if he gets that win, he's probably going to be low-owned and really set you apart from your peers in GPPs tonight.
Yeah, and I feel like you're being generous about the Pirates thing there because, 29.1% strikeout rate against lefties. And we think the Cubs strike out a lot, and they're at 27.5. After that is the Brewers at 24.6. So we're talking enormous numbers against lefties. I'm with you there. That Cole Hamels is a guy that I don't generally like to play. He's had some struggles with long balls, but you're not going to find a much better spot than this. So I think he's going to be a great sort of really low-owned play there. And 8 Ks his last time out. He looked good. He's kind of alternated good and bad starts over the last 3, but still, he's got some massive upside. I would definitely like that call. If I'm going different, I'm going the opposite side of Matt Harvey, and I'm going with Jason Hamill. I like him in tournaments a lot. If you look at his numbers just this season, obviously, compared to Matt Harvey, really, really similar numbers. 3.2% walk rate to 3.3, strikeout rate 24.2 to 22.9, ground ball rate 42.5 to 41.8. You kind of see the picture here. Really, really similar performance so far from him this season for $1,800 cheaper, and now you get him against the Mets, who against right-handed pitching are 28th in the league. So, a lot of things going. We saw it last time. Jake Arrieta, obviously a much better pitcher than Jason Hamill, but had zero trouble just mowing this lineup down. They don't strike out a ton, so you don't like that at 19%, but being one of the worst teams, not much team ISO either, I like Jason Hamill there at that price.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, most people are going to be on Harvey tonight, so being on the opposite side of that always puts you in a advantageous low ownership percentage section, especially if he gets the win, then you're leaps and bounds ahead of people. So Hamels is a nifty call. My second favorite GPP play tonight is James Shields against the Mariners. Yes, Shields has given up a ton of home runs. No, he's not going to continue to throw batting practice all year to these guys. And also, gotta love the strikeout upside. He ranks second in swinging strike rate according to FanGraphs, and punching out everybody and their brother, not walking a lot of batters. Once those home run issues get in check, we're talking about a stud, big game James type of pitcher. This is He's been fantastic in terms of missing bats. Just needs to limit the home runs and gets to pitch at pitcher-friendly Safeco field tonight. So I like James Shields quite a bit in tournaments, and he's a guy that is actually an underdog tonight, which again will drive his ownership down, but only a small underdog with Taijuan Walker getting the slight favorite nod.
Yeah, and like you said, he's going to be really low owned. People are afraid of the long ball, but this isn't a thing that has been a big trouble for him throughout his career. So like you said, should regress back, and he makes for a fine play. So since you went that route, I'm going to go ahead and steal Jimmy Nelson, who I know you like.
Yeah.
I know a lot of other people like. $6,900 on FanDuel, 61 on DraftKings. Tonight's matchup against the Chicago White Sox, and you've got Jose Quintana on the other side. And the White Sox, I mean, they're not a terrible team against right-handed pitching, but they're about league average. Looks like 315 WOBA, 18.7% strikeout rate. Surprisingly, a really low team ISO, 119. So they're not hitting the ball particularly hard. And Nelson's guys been missing a lot of bats. He's got 24.8% strikeout rate on the season. Been really, really tough on righties, which is really good for this lineup that doesn't have a lot of good lefties. I mean, you got guys like Adam Eaton, Adam LaRoche. These guys aren't concerning you too much here. And maybe LaRoche isn't even in the lineup, obviously with no DH here. So a lot of things going in his factor, and then he's really, really cheap. So you can do a lot with your lineup there if you get Jimmy Nelson in.
Definitely, I really like Nelson a lot. He's missing bats. He's keeping the ball on the ground. He had problems with homers in his last start, but made up for it by punching out every Cub and their mother basically. And the thing with Nelson is, and the White Sox lineup that he's facing, and you alluded to it, but possibly no Adam LaRoche tonight. And if not no Adam LaRoche, no Jose Abreu. Now, they're an average-ish offense against right-handed pitchers when they have a designated hitter. They're clearly a well below average offense now when you take out one of their key cogs as a hitter. So that's a really, really soft lineup tonight, and I really like Jimmy Nelson a lot. He will be my favorite SP2 on DK tonight, and definitely a strong GPP play on single-pitcher sites like FanDuel.
Absolutely. I know we've got a FanDuel special here, but if you got someone else you want to throw out here before we get to him, then let me know, and I'll give you the floor for that one.
Nope. I want you to take your FanDuel special. There are no other pitching names that I'm looking at other than this mystery man that you're going to roll out right now.
All right. As I've said before, I like to, when I'm building my lineups, I like to scroll all the way to the bottom and see what kind of goodies I can find at every position. And if you go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom on FanDuel, you see nice little $3,000 Rafael Iglesias for the Cincinnati Reds tonight. And Vegas actually likes him a little bit here in this matchup. Obviously, a lot of that due to the fact that Eric Stultz is pitching in a bandbox in Cincinnati. We know that he is very generous at giving up home runs to anyone who wants one, so especially right-handed bats. So we know that there's a lot of power here. And Iglesias at $3,000. I mean, to put that in perspective, Mike Trout is almost twice as much as him at $5,400 today. You can certainly, this is a GPP podcast. Don't you dare play this guy in your cash games. If you do, at Big Italy 42, find my games, take those. Either way, $3,000. I mean, you can literally get yourself the best player at every single position, except for maybe one. And I mean, that's a good way to go in tournaments. I mean, I think I'm going to have probably, I don't know, if I had to estimate, 10 to 25 maybe GPP lineups with this guy. And I mean, you can just stack big bats. You can go mini stacks of a couple teams you like. You can do anything with this guy. And he's not going to pitch 6 or 7 innings and get you 10 Ks. So don't expect that. But he might go 5 innings, get you 4 or 5 Ks, give up 2 earned runs, maybe get the win if he's qualified. It's very low risk type of thing. You don't expect that he gets crushed and gets you a negative. And I mean, at 3K, you don't have much to lose.
No, and he's got a live arm. It's not like we're talking about a guy that is requiring needs deception or lacks a fastball. I mean, he's a guy that sits in the low to mid 90s and has slider. Might struggle multiple times through the lineup because his changeup isn't anything to write home about. But if he gives you five and dive and gets the W, like that is well worth the $3,000 price tag on FanDuel. And I expect the Reds to provide some run support. So get to that 5 innings and get the heck out of there and get yourself a W.
Yeah, and I mean, he pitched well against the Cardinals in his one start this year. He pitched really well over the first 4 innings, then kind of got hit around a little bit there in the 5th, gave up 300 runs. But, you know, he was off to a really good start and had 4 Ks. So, like I said, not a huge ceiling with this guy, but at $3,000, you don't need a ceiling. What you need is a decent floor. If he gets you 8 points, just think of it this way. If you get a hitter that gets you 8 points for 3K, you're thrilled. Obviously, you're missing out on some pitcher points there, but add a win to that, that's 12 points at your pitcher spot for $7,300 less than Matt Harvey, who,
Yep.
Just so happened to have only 7 fantasy points in his last outing. Just saying.
Yeah, just put things in perspective.
Yeah, exactly. You got to think of all angles here. So let's go ahead and move on to catcher, where surprisingly, as we were digging, there's quite a few options that came up. There's your obvious top options, some guys that have been hitting the ball really well. You got Russell Martin is your most expensive hitter at $3,700. You've got Victor Martinez at $3,500 against Ricky Nolasco, or whatever's left of Ricky Nolasco at this point. I know there's 2 guys in particular that you're looking at here. So who are some guys you're targeting here at catcher?
The top name, and I'll be targeting him at both FanDuel and DraftKings, is Buster Posey. He gets Brett Oberholzer, so he gets a lefty tonight. Not a good lefty either. And he gets one away from AT&T Park, so he gets to hit at Minute Maid. Hitter-friendly venue, gets to amplify his power because the park factor for homers for righties and lefties at Minute Maid is significantly better than AT&T Park, and actually is above neutral. And the other name that I'm looking at is a guy that's catcher in name only, cheap on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But Willian Rosario has served as a designated hitter last night for the Rockies, and will do so again tonight against a lefty. Absolutely rips the cover off the ball against lefties. Gets one that's not very good. And I wanted to say Jose Quintana again. I will say Hector Santiago. I am so glad that they are not teammates anymore, because that used to be a nightmare for me mixing them up. But he gets Hector Santiago tonight, the not good lefty, or the lesser of the two. And I love the price tag. He hit 6th last night, so not the worst lineup spot. Not that desired 1 through 5 spot, but really good. And for GPPs, it's hard to argue with the kind of power upside that Rosario possesses.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. I mean, the really cheap price, like you mentioned, on both sites, so he's certainly in play. A couple other guys considered. Derek Norris against Taijuan Walker has been giving up a ton of hard contact. We know that Norris has great splits against lefties. He's no slouch against righties either, though, so I think he's certainly in play. And one more guy, if you want to chase the long ball. We talked about James Shields' struggles at giving up the long ball, 7 in his last 2 games, in fact. Mike Zunino got a hold of 2 of them last night, back-to-back innings. And on the year, he only has 5, but 3 of those have come in the last 7 games now. He certainly has a lot of upside. I tend to think if Shields is going to make a mistake, it's going to be to someone in the bottom of the order tonight. Maybe focuses on the hitters who you're actually worried about, like Cano and Seager. And I don't know, a little guy named Nelson Cruz you might have heard of. So men's salary on FanDuel, I don't mind Mike Zunino tonight in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, you're chasing power there, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the idea here.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and move on here to first base, where, as always, there are a ton of options. Take your pick from whatever you want here. You got Miggy tonight against Ricky Nolasco. Hasn't looked great over his past week or so, and it's a righty-righty matchup, but we know Miggy's still Miggy. $4,600 on FanDuel is a fine price for him. As usual, really expensive on DraftKings at $4,900, but he's certainly in play. Edwin Encarnacion, we know, likes to go on these big-time power streaks, power surges. Got a hold of 2 of them last night. $4,000 is a really nice price for him on FanDuel. If you look at him on DraftKings, $5,400, and he just so happens to get Miguel Gonzalez, who has had big-time troubles with the long ball throughout his career. So I think he's one of your higher upside plays at first base tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Miguel Gonzalez has monstrous home run issues, as you said. Expect to hear some more Blue Jays names as the podcast rolls along. Some of the other names that we like at first base, and I know Justin and I are in agreement. There's 2 first basemen in that game at Great American that look pretty good, and Freddie Freeman and Joey Votto. Both line drive hitting machines, both getting pitchers that are not spectacular. Votto in a lefty-lefty matchup, but as we know, Votto ropes liners off of lefties, and Eric Stoltz isn't a good one, so we're not talking about a guy that should tie him up. And then we've got my favorite GPP play. That's Chris Davis against Aaron Sanchez. Sanchez struggles with walks, and that means that if he's going to be putting base runners on in front of Chris Davis, you've got some monster, not only home run upside, but home run with multiple RBI upside, and that's really what you want. I mean, solo shots are great. You're not going to argue with getting a home run. But if you get a home run with a couple batters on, you're looking at a monster score on DraftKings and FanDuel. And I love Chris Davis at home. Camden Yards really enhances power to left-handed batters. And Chris Davis knows that firsthand as a member of the Orioles.
Absolutely, I love that call, and like you said, should be plenty of ducks on the pond, as we say, for Chris Davis today. And Prince Fielder's another guy that I really like here against Rodano Ventura's been getting hit hard. He's $3,100 on FanDuel is a nice price. And then if you're not playing Matt Harvey, Anthony Rizzo is on fire right now. He's patient at the plate. He's hitting the ball hard. He's $4,500 on FanDuel. He is $4,900 on DraftKings. As we know, Matt Harvey has allowed 4 home runs this season, all of them to left-handed batters. So he's the biggest obstacle for Matt Harvey tonight. And, you know, if anyone's going to get a hold of one against Harvey, my money, all of my money is on Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, and I've got one more name for you that I was thinking of as outfield eligible on DraftKings, but first base eligible on FanDuel and also first base eligible on DraftKings as well. But minimum salary and a guy that you like, Darren Ruff, $2,200 against a lefty. Hits lefties well. Francisco Liriano, not your typical lefty in that he can get righties out at a high clip when he's cooking. But, I mean, Messi Francisco Liriano shows up, and all of a sudden $2,200 Darren Ruff at Citizens Bank Park looks pretty good.
Absolutely. I'll throw out one more guy here that's cheap. Only first base eligible on DraftKings. He's not first base eligible on FanDuel, but outfield on both. Kind of the opposite there. Chris Colabello, once again picking on Miguel Gonzalez. He should be hitting 6th. This guy has been incredible since he came up. Home run, 5 RBIs, multi-hit games, and it looks like 5 of the 7 games he's been in. So the guy's just hitting the ball well, right behind big bats like Encarnacion, Russell Martin, everyone else that we like. And you can get him for $2,900 on DraftKings, $24 on FanDuel. Absolutely love him, and I mean, he even made it onto my cash game team last night, so I think this guy's got a nice high floor as well.
Yeah, I mean, the price is so right, especially on DraftKings where you're looking for, where when you get a guy under $3,000, it's just not even fair.
Yep, absolutely. So definitely take advantage of some discount there. Moving on to second base here where there's some good options, and Jimmy Paredes comes to mind at $3,400 on FanDuel going against Aaron Sanchez. We already talked about him. Really both sides of this game, obviously.
Yep.
Devin Travis, if he's back in the lineup, should be a nice play as well. Robinson Cano, if you're not a believer in James Shields turning it around, he could be going deep. And then I'll throw out one more, Brian Dozier against an average at best lefty and Kyle Lobstein.
Yeah, I mean, those are the bulk of the names that I'm locking in on. I really like Devin Travis, and I love his price point at DraftKings, just $3,300. If he's leading off, he gets to take advantage of Miguel Gonzalez's struggles with the long ball. He'll be the first one to take advantage of that as a right-handed batter. More of a cash games play, but you can never argue with the ceiling. D. Gordon against a righty tonight. Not a great righty in Carlos Frias, so I like D. Gordon a bit tonight if you're willing to pay up at the position. But you pretty much nailed all of the guys that I'm looking at. And you had a cheap name that you wanted to throw out there, too, that we talked about before the podcast.
Yeah, Jace Peterson's the guy that I like. He's $2,300 there. He's got a ton of multi-hit games in his last 10 games. He's second base, third base eligible on DraftKings at $3,500. He makes for an interesting play, depending on what his lineup spot is. Hopefully he's right around 6th. I think he batted 7th last night. And one more guy who has second base shortstop eligibility on DraftKings, shortstop only on FanDuel. I'll go ahead and transition to shortstop here then with him is Matt Duffy. He's been batting second against lefties. 5 RBI and 3 hits in his last game. Bochy said he's riding with the hot hand. Gets a bad lefty today, and Brett Oberholzer that Josh already mentioned. So $3,100 on DraftKings, minimum salary on FanDuel. If he's batting second, I will be all over Matt Duffy tonight.
Yeah, nice punt. I mean, that's a great punt price, and obviously some people will probably be chasing last night's 5 RBI game, but really more than anything, you have to like the lineup spot and the price point. You're not expecting that kind of performance, but if he gives you anything at that price, what you're able to do with the rest of your money is just unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely. That's the key there. And one guy whose price is really starting to creep up there, but he's been hitting the ball really well, batting ahead of Freddie Freeman, is Andrelton Simmons. He's at $3,000 on FanDuel now. GPP only easily at DraftKings at $4,700, most expensive shortstop on the board over Troy Tulowitzki and company. I think he makes for an interesting play tonight because he's been hitting the ball well, and people will not be seeing that name at top the shortstop heap and be flocking to roster Andrelton Simmons at almost $5,000 tonight.
No, that's a nice price point contrarian pick right there. Basically, going to drive the ownership down, but gets a really nice home run park factor there at Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark. So not a bad play at all. You mentioned Tulo gets a lefty today. I mean, maybe he wants to be traded from Colorado, but he's going to get to play for them tonight against a lefty, and I'll take him against Hector Santiago. There's a few cheap shortstops that I love tonight, though. I like Jordy Mercer of the Pirates. Yes, Cole Hamels is my top GPP play at pitcher, but on rosters I don't have him. I'm probably going to stick in some Mercer shares. Usually hits second against lefties, hits for above average power, really, really good hitter against left-handed pitching. And we got a lefty-lefty matchup that is going to fly under the radar just a little bit. That's Brandon Crawford of the San Francisco Giants. Was dreadful against lefties early in his career, made some adjustments, and has actually flipped his platoon split. Struggling a little bit with righties now, but absolutely annihilating left-handed pitching. And gets a bad one again. Brett Oberholzer, not particularly good against lefties or righties, and at Minute Maid Ballpark, so he's going to get that power boost that you get from playing there. I really like Brandon Crawford quite a bit tonight, and I'm going to own quite a few shares.
Yeah, and you had already mentioned the fact that we see lefty-lefty matchups, guys who can actually hit lefties against bad lefties, really, really under-owned. People look at those splits and they just get right off it. They move on. They don't want the guys in lefty-lefty matchup, but definitely a good way to get yourself a contrarian play, especially at a pretty thin position at shortstop tonight. All right, let's go ahead and move on here to the outfield. Final position. We got plenty of time left here. Oh, sorry.
Unfortunately, our transition had a skipping third base. Let's go back to the hot corner. But actually, it's funny. The hot corner is one of the positions that we like the least tonight. So I can understand you wanting to gloss over it. Yeah. But I'll leave your boy for you here in a second. But one of my favorite plays at the position is Manny Machado, absolutely raking from the leadoff spot. Aaron Sanchez struggles with control. Big number on the run total there from Vegas. So I want as many shares of that game as I can get, both sides of it. Really like Manny Machado tonight. Like Nolan Arenado against a lefty. Really like to pick on Santiago just a little bit. So I'm going to grab some shares of him. And I'll steal one of your guys because we're both on him. That's Trevor Plouffe against a lefty, Kyle Lobestein. $2,900 on FanDuel. And then let's pull up his price here on 45, a little expensive on DraftKings, but really like his price point at 29 on FanDuel. So those are a few of the names that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm with you there, especially Machado leading off, like you said, great matchup, and should be able to get on base, and he's just been crushing the ball. So should get plenty of opportunities to hit too, especially on DraftKings. No negatives for points, so you don't care if he gets 6 at-bats. I mean, all you got to do is take advantage of a couple of them. Elsewhere, I love Todd Frazier tonight at $3,600 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, his price is obviously a little bit higher, as it always is, at $4,500. You can play him at first base also on DraftKings if you'd like. I'm certainly playing him at third because there's a lot of first base options I prefer. But he's got a nice price. Obviously, Eric Staal's given up 6 homers to righties already. Bandbox in Cincinnati. A lot of things going in Todd Frazier's favor here tonight. And outside of that, I like Mike Moustakas. He's more of a cash game play for me, though. He's got a little bit of pop. He's got a nice cheap price tag. Outside of that, woof. I don't like anything else.
That's a lie. You do like one more name.
Oh, Alex Rodriguez.
Yes, sir.
500 on FanDuel. Yeah, love him or hate him. No comment there. But he's a guy, $4,000 on DraftKings. He's got a nice price for a guy with some upside. And, you know, Nate Carnes has been a pretty good pitcher, but he hasn't been phenomenal. We've seen, I mean, Alex Rodriguez has 8 home runs already on the season. So, yeah, I mean, maybe he finds his way into another one tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, again, GPPs, you want power, you want speed, you want upside, and Alex Rodriguez certainly presents that.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with some big bats around him in that lineup as well. Definitely some run-scoring opportunities. All right, outfield now. Now that I got back to the hot corner that I almost forgot about. But we got some big names out here, of course. I'm still looking at Nelson Cruz in tournaments. You got the best home run hitter in the game this year against the guy who's given up the most home runs. The recipe for disaster, believe it or not, with James Shields, doesn't really matter. I think he makes for a great tournament play just because of that. So $4,800 on FanDuel is not a bad price for him at all by any means. Most expensive player on the outfield on DraftKings, though, at $5,200. So you got to pay up for him. He's expensive. And then if you want to pay a little bit down, you could go with the guy who hit a ball out of a stadium yesterday, and that's Giancarlo Stanton, who's at only $4,700 on DraftKings, $4,400 on FanDuel. Seems a little bit too cheap for a guy who is hitting cars in a parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, big raw power gets one of the lesser pitchers on the slate in Carlos Frias, so he's not facing. We're not talking about a guy that's stuck facing Matt Harvey or Cole Hamels or Francisco Liriano or one of the many names that are the better pitchers on the slate. So I really like Stanton. Another top flight name that I like, who still has a depressed price on FanDuel, is $5,100 on DraftKings. That's Carlos Gomez. Hitting cleanup for the Brew Crew, and I expect him to do cleanup on the White Sox tonight and Jose Quintana. So love the power speed combination, love the ballpark, Miller Park, great venue for hitting in. You mentioned before the podcast his teammate Ryan Braun kills lefties as well. Maybe hook the two of them, get your 3-4 hitters from the Brew Crew. Hope they go a little belly to belly, back to back, and take a couple dongs from those guys, and then. The outfield's deep as always. Name that I'm going to throw it to you for one of your favorite plays on the West Coast. Why don't you give us your guy that you're going to get some left-handed exposure to Mr. Jordan Lyles with?
I am in love with Cole Calhoun tonight, especially on FanDuel at $3,100. It's a crazy cheap price tag. You know, when I really like a player, I like to look at the guys around him, and there's really no one in this price range that's even close, I think, with the matchup. Everything, also having the best hitter in baseball, hitting right behind him. Great price tag. And even on DraftKings, $4,100, not a bad price at all for Cole Calhoun. He's got power and speed upside. Should see a lot of runs. We know Jordan Lyles is tough on righties, much more than he is on lefties. I just love Cole Calhoun's prospects tonight at that price tag.
Yeah, and I mean, he's one of my favorite plays on the night because of the price point, because of the matchup. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of left-handed bats that you can get at Lyles with. One that you had brought up is Matt Joyce. Joyce struggling this year, so that should drive his ownership down. And the fact that he's Matt Joyce will drive his ownership down. But
he's been salary. That'll drive it up a little, I guess.
Yes, but I'll take some Matt Joyce against Lyles. He's just so bad against left-handed hitters, and I want to get some of those bats in the lineup against him. And this will be a friendly reminder. Two guys that we talked about that have outfield eligibility on, well, let me make sure, on DK is Chris Colabello and Darren Ruff. So don't forget about those guys. Both are fairly cheap. Both give you some roster flexibility. $3,400 and $2,900 for Ruff and Colabello, respectively. I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing both of them, but if you want to do crazy things, put together a zany lineup, you know what? You could probably get away with doing that.
Yeah, that's another way to be contrarian. Leave some money on the table. I don't blame you there. And some bats I really like in the Texas game. Hopefully the weather concerns kind of fix things up. We'll see, but I'm still going to talk about these guys. One guy's flying way under the radar. X-Red over here. Shin-Soo Choo, 7 hits in his last 3 games, including 2 doubles and a home run. He's $2,900 on FanDuel, $41 on DraftKings, so I like him a lot. And then, of course, we're talking about lefties for Kansas City. Like them a lot. Vegas loves them a lot. Gallardo's having some struggles with lefties. Alex Gordon, $3,300 on FanDuel is a really nice price for him. And he's at 43 on DraftKings. And Ned Yost just defies logic by batting this guy 6th. His best hitter against righties. I don't understand it. But at least hitting 6, he's going to have a lot of RBI opportunities. Hopefully there's some to still be had by the time the lineup gets around to the 6th hole in the first inning tonight.
Yeah, so you're saying you hope that it's not like vultures over a dead carcass with no meat left on it. Like, yeah. Please have some runners on base for Alex Gordon.
Out, and then grand slam right before he comes up.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. All right. Hey, you know what? If that happens, look at the 5-hole. Whoever's playing in the 5-hole tonight for the Royals, guaranteed grand slam. But elsewhere in the outfield, there's some other options. Seth Smith seems more like a cash game play, but he's really cheap at $2,400 on FanDuel. He makes for a fine play as well. Any other big bats that are kind of catching your eye here that you think have some nice upside here?
No. One more name that I will throw out there based on ballpark and lineup spot mostly. $2,600 on FanDuel, Nick Markakis against Raziel Iglesias. Not a bad price point. Doesn't usually have the kind of ceiling that you want, but Great American Ballpark has a funny way of making ceiling elevate just a little bit by taking some balls that would be cans of corn in other ballparks and turning them into home runs here. Not saying Nick Markakis is going to hit a home run, but if there's a park that he's going to do it in, Great American's right up there towards the top of the list. Does have a fairly high floor, which, again, isn't necessarily something you're seeking on most of your tournament teams, but not a bad guy to sprinkle in there if you do have guys like Chris Davis littered throughout your lineup, and you just want a couple guys to maybe fill in the pieces and allow you that salary flexibility while not scoring 0 points. Markakis is a guy that I like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to throw out one more guy who's been swinging a nice hot bat, some upside. Carlos Peguero tonight, $2,900 on FanDuel, $32 on DraftKings, assuming that he's in the lineup, and he should be against a righty tonight. And Yordan Ventura, we know he throws hard. Peguero swings hard. That's a recipe for some GPP success for you tonight for cheap.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a guy who hit for a lot of power in the minors. Does have a lot of strikeout potential, which is not what we want, but that's part of embracing the volatility and chasing that power. Sometimes you got to take on these high strikeout guys. But yeah, Peguero's a good call.
All right, and with that, that'll do it for us. Find us on Twitter. Follow us at dfcafe.com. Lots of great content, as always, for tonight's slate at dailyfantasycafe.com, and we will see you tomorrow.